Okay, Grand Rising, everyone. This is Ron. Sunday, June 15th already. The month is half over. Happy Father's Day to everyone. Uh, and let's see if we have any questions.
I have a comment.
Yes, ma'am.
Mel. Grand Rising, everyone. Today, I happened to catch ABC News, and they were talking about the movie Straw with Taraji P. Henson. But what struck me was when she talked about being the table, given all her experiences, not about the movie, but being in the industry she's in. And I just wanted to say it's nice to hear others picking it up out of the macro.
Yeah, I didn't give me what did she say if you don't mind? Just
Well, she was saying how she had struggled and, it wasn't easy. She was talking to a graduating class,
uh-huh.
and she went on to say Tyler Perry really challenged her growth. And she said what she had to learn was that not to come asking, but she is the table. She was begging to be a seat at the table and realize she, what she said was, I am the table.
Okay.
And she went on to say how we know it, but because we've carried so much baggage, we forget that it's already within us. And it just reminded me of everything Sage and the teachers have been teaching us. And it just affirmed it again for me. And I needed that affirming this morning. So that's what I thought was really interesting. And the movie in and of itself, if you haven't seen it, it is
Mhm.
well worth the time because it's basically talking about the struggle of humanity, in particularly Black women, but it's really about people. And she really did a wonderful job with it.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I may, Grand Rising, everyone, this is GC. And Vermel, I appreciate you mentioning that movie. I did too have a chance to see it. And I was just truly blessed to see the empathy with regards to her being able to realize that through all of the struggle, we know that the Creator, as the pastor said yesterday, the ancestors will never leave us nor forsake us. And that's just reassuring to know that no matter what we grow through, you know what I mean, with the spirit of our ancestors, the spirit of us having the opportunity to appreciate the challenges that we face in life, but just know the outcome of being able to just share this time together. And I concur with you that it's an excellent, you know, um, movie to watch, to be able to learn from. So I appreciate you sharing that. I'm done.
Thank you. Anyone?
Thank you. Yeah.
And what's the name of the movie?
Straw, straw, STRAW.
And it's on Netflix.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you for sharing.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I also saw the movie, and to the people who have seen the movie, one thing that I did gather from it was none of that would have ever happened if that young lady was in the community. Um, because in the community, there's certain things you don't see. Um, in a community, you're not going to see a parent who scared a child and children. Now, that was not a part of the movie. I'm just saying in the community, you don't see that. And in a community, you see people who have chores, responsibility, task, assignment, and everyone knows their role. So um, it's not opinionated. If that young lady knew me, she wouldn't have had those physical problems. Spiritually, she would have to have some things. And if she knew Miss Phoebe Richard, Miss Kathy, Reverend Richard, GC out of Philly, she's not going to have those problems in the physical. Someone would have been there that took care of a child. She would have had a vehicle. Someone would have went to the school to represent her. So in a community, that's what I gathered from it. We are struggling because we're not in the community, we're in the neighborhood. Thank you.
That is and I look forward to seeing the movie, but that's a good observation, and that's part of the message that we've been trying to get across, George, all along, is getting back to our neighborhoods, and we've talked about that on several occasions. Pastor has mentioned his upbringing and my upbringing and some of the others, where how we were brought up, and the oneness of the neighborhood, not only the kids, but the adults as well, and the sharing that was done. We need to get back. That's where we're headed. We're not just need to get back, but that is a spiritual connection that we're headed in right now. That's part of this journey. But thank you. Anyone else?
Since you said this, Ryan, what is a community and what is a neighborhood?
Charles,
Well, I can answer that.
Go ahead, anybody. I need to know.
Go ahead, George.
My interpretation of a community, in a community, like I stated before, everyone has a task, assignment, responsibility, or chore. And chores are very important to young adults, especially the African American males. Chores. If you struggle in your chores, you're going to struggle with task assignments, responsibility. So in a community, everyone knows what their assignment is. Everyone knows everyone. You know your neighbor. You know your children's friend. There's a high degree of intimacy. There's a high degree of no one is without. Now, in a neighborhood, that's something totally different. Like I say, in a community, you ain't gonna see no parent that's scared of their child. Yet in neighborhoods or a neighborhood, you see parents scared of their child, and it bleeds off in their education, bada bang, bada boom. But a community, everyone knows everyone's assignment. There ain't no big I's and little U's. I hope that helped you, Mr. Charles. Or if not, you can get with someone else.
Hi, this is Lavon from Philadelphia. I'm in agreement with what George has said. I feel that neighborhoods or neighbors are people who live in close proximity to me. I look across the street, I look on one side or the other. A community, whether they're close to me as far as distance, I don't see it quite like that. And because I look at this group that meets on Monday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday as a community that is there to strengthen, support, and know that I'll be there for you or they'll be there for me. Whether I've met anyone, even like I've never met you, Charles, but whether I met you or not, I know that if I had your number and had to call you, you would be part of that community that would support me. So I look at it like what George has said, but at the same time, I can also see a community being a support system that does not have to be close to me. And we're talking about, distance between Philadelphia and South Carolina. And I know that anyone on this call or that's listening, I could contact and they would be part of the community that I would need at that time for whatever I was struggling with or going through. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I think that sums it up.
I thank that lady for what. Go ahead.
Sounds like then the community represents a more physical aspect of things, whereas a neighborhood is more physical. The community is beyond a physical location. It's a connection that is more spiritual in nature.
Exactly. Thank you, Charles. Did you have a?
Yes, if there's no one else. Like I said, I thank George from Philly's wife. I didn't know it just then, but the reason I asked that question, you have some people that ain't never had a community or a neighborhood. I just thank her for what she said, because that's how I feel now with the church family and friends and the people that won't steer you wrong, and being here is guiding me through the spiritual things, because all the time I used to try to read and trying to get into it. It doesn't draw me like it does now. So I'm just saying, it's good having a family in the community.
Thank you for the question.
Well, one thing I will add, and Mr. GC out of Philly, my wife's cousin is down at our house. And by way of the conversation, his cousin said, I done gained 40 pounds since I done been at George and Monique's house. And she has gained 40 pounds. And he asked, how did that happen, Janet? And Janet said, George always cooking. And he said, it ain't like he put a gun to your head. The point of it is this: in a community, the person who said that, Ed, he has a speech impediment. He said that is smooth as strawberry wine. So in community, if you got an ailment, arthritis, rheumatism, migraine, I know it sounds kind of crazy, but if you understand it, Mr. GC, help me out. In a community, Ed was able to say that smooth. It would take Ed 2 minutes to say Harry Potter. Yet in the community, I think it really aids in some degree of ailments. Thank you very much.
I like when we come back to stuff and revisit stuff, because we've talked about community and neighborhood, we've talked about country and nation, we've talked about the spirit of intimacy, and all of it's the same thing. And every time we revisit this, we gain a different level of understanding. So thank you for the question and the discussion. The only thing I want to add is one of the things that we still maybe struggle a little bit with is recognizing that there's a community in each and every one of us. And that community, of course, we know it expands outside of us. I'm a part of your community and you're a part of mine. But part of the struggle is those thoughts, feelings, and emotions are your community as well. So that's the oneness that that we sometimes don't see as our community, but it is. And sometimes that's community keep us from connecting with others. So any thoughts or questions on any of this, or anything else you may have?
Hey, Ron, I want to be sure that the discussion yesterday was understood by everyone who had the experience, or did they experience anything during the session, especially when we were talking about ancestors. I suppose they did. George?
Yeah, Pastor, you know, I mentioned earlier, but I wanted to ask you, you know, this question. You know, in the Bible, it speaks about God when said he would never leave us nor forsake us. And yesterday you mentioned about the ancestors. And I think that really had me to give some thought when you mentioned that the ancestors would never leave us nor forsake us. And so as we come to appreciate, you know, God's word, the creator's word, but to be able to understand it from the origin of a Kabbalah, that really impacted on me in terms of the ancestors will never leave us nor forsake us. I come to believe that is true, but I just wanted to maybe hear your thoughts on how it was written according to the Bible versus us looking at it in the spirit of our ancestors, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you. That goes back to our discussion about who we are. We are Elohim. We are God. We were brought into this earth for that purpose. And if we are God while we are embodied in this flesh, then when we exit it, that does not change. Actually, it gives even more credence to it because we're able to see far beyond and beyond what we are able to see in these bodies. So in the body, we are Elohim having a physical experience. Outside of the body, we are Elohim, period, because we are created in that image and likeness. And that image and likeness is spiritual. That image and likeness is replete with attributes that embrace humanity in a very, very positive way, like loving kindness, mercy, etc. There is another scripture, George, I would like to bring into play with this as well. And it says that it is God's will that all be saved and none lost. That is saying that it is our will, our desire, that everyone will be delivered from all of those adversarial thoughts, or delivered from the desire to create adversities for others. And that in itself is salvation. So that between those two scriptures, I believe that speaks directly to us embodied, as well as our ancestors who are disembodied from this flesh. I hope that helps. Thanks. Thank you.
Yes, it does.
Thanks. Any questions or comments about that?
Grand Rising family, this is Kathy. Pastor, I don't have a question about what George just said, but I wanted to go back to, I was not on yesterday, and I did listen to everything last evening when I got home, and it was a very powerful lesson. And I heard Evelyn ask me a question, and I wanted to address the question, but I also have a question after I address her question. It asked me about ancestors. And one of the things that I'm realizing in my own life is that with spiritual growth, everything is kind of evolving and changing, and there's no set way for me to sit with the ancestors now and recognize them. I was thinking about when I heard that question last night, the spiritual journey that I have been on for as long as I can remember now. And when I lived in Rock Hill, I had what I thought were spiritual interludes. And what I mean by that, point in case, I'll wrap it up quickly and say this. There were items that I had a necklace that a Tree of Life necklace that I wore a lot. And I had a car key, my Lexus car key. These things went missing when they should not have gone missing. One went missing, the key went missing at a doctor's office. I was not driving. The necklace went missing while we were on vacation, although it was never taken out of my suitcase. When I returned home, it was not there. As I was packing up to leave Rock Hill to move to Spartanburg, I looked in the bottom. I had packed up a bin of makeup that I was giving away, Mary Kay makeup. And then I thought about there was something in that bin that I wanted to get out of that. And when I opened that bin and went to the bottom of the bin, Linda opened the bin, and both of those items were in the bin. And I just smiled because I called that what I then thought was just spiritual interludes. But now I understand that that was letting us know and preparing me that, you know, the spirit, you're in this world, but you're not of this world. There's always spiritual activity going on around you and with you at all times. So point in case, in my meditation last week, as I would sit still and just breathe and just acknowledge and reverence and pay homage to the ancestors and Father, Mother of the universe, and just recognizing that the cosmic mother is on the throne and just breathing. You all have always termed me as the weather woman. We were having our outdoor festival last week, and it was supposed to have been a storm that day and severe weather, and I kept dealing with the weather. But every time through my meditation that I would sit there and deal with the weather, what I kept hearing was, let it be what it's going to be. I didn't understand that. And I'm like, why is it that we can't have this festival without the weather cooperating? But am I getting what I thought then was pushback? So this happened for like 3 or 4 days. And finally, about the 4th day, someone sent me an email saying, hey, have you seen this article? That was the email that was sent to me that was showing that the dust cloud was coming from Africa. And it had the picture of the cloud, and it looked like a massive hurricane. When you looked at it, said it was the largest dust cloud ever. And the other thing with the weather for last week's festival, it was supposed to have been extremely hot as well. Then I understood why I heard, let it be what it's going to be. I'm saying all of that to say, even as we evolve and understand what it means to sit with ancestors, as they're speaking to us, we have to realize and recognize that it's bigger than us, because without even meaning to, I was trying to shape what the weather was going to be when it needed to be what it was going to be. And I immediately said, I apologize, I didn't understand, and I embraced what needed to happen, and it happened the way it was supposed to happen, and I'm fine with the way everything went. I would like for something to have been different, but I understood that it was bigger than me, and it was necessary that this cloud come into this area and do what it needed to do. So with all of that being said, understanding that I'm learning to be more sensitive and to be more aware that we are spiritual creatures, we are spiritual beings, and we are always having spiritual interludes at all times with those spiritual things that we sometimes overlook. But with that being said, my question becomes, when we look at Hebrews 12:1, and I'm reading for the New International Version, it says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sins that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. I guess my question becomes, when that dust cloud is moving, I remember when I sent that article to Pastor, I said, the ancestors are moving, which I know they always are. But I guess my question becomes, that cloud of witnesses, the dust cloud, all of these things that we are seeing play out in this realm, are they one and the same? And how does that fit? And what I'm asking, does that make sense? Do you understand what I'm asking, Pastor?
Yes, I do. I look at the cloud of witnesses differently than I have in the past. because in the past I was looking at them through the eyes of religion. I see this cloud of witnesses, these martyrs, as ancestors, because the word witness comes from the word martyr. It means martyr. So these ancestors, as that verse you read says, these ancestors have shown us that we have nothing to lose other than the chains that holds us back. And now that we recognize and embrace the presence of the ancestors, the knowledge and wisdom of the ancestors, when we embrace that, we are given not only the strength, but also our will is amplified, our will to persevere, regardless of the adversity that we face. So I see, excuse me, everything you said as referencing the reality and the significance of embracing the ancestors. Does that help?
I think so, because I'm not saying that the dust particles become the ancestors, but is that not a tangible thing that they are showing us to remind us of their movement? And if that is the case, the scripture says we are surrounded by such a great cloud. And that goes back to what George was asking. That reinforces the idea that we are never alone.
Yes, the cloud itself, addressing it, I said that it is a reminder of the ancestors of their presence. And it also is a reminder of the guidance that we are receiving. And if you really give thought to it, not only is it the largest cloud of dust, but it also is encompassing areas that it had not years ago. So this cloud of witnesses does indeed remind us that we are surrounded by the ancestors. And it is not lost on me that the cloud coming this way, or the portions of it that enters this environment, primarily enters this environment in the South, in the states where slavery was more prominent and brutality was the order of the day, as well as the islands in the Caribbean. So I agree wholeheartedly that this dust is a reminder that we are always surrounded by the ancestors, and from that we draw our strength to persevere. I hope that helps.
It does. Thank you so much.
And thank you for the question and the explanation. Anyone else?
Yes, I have a question. Grand Rising, honor to the ancestors. Pastor Jay and family. So the God that the European gave us, we've been crying out to it and getting no results. And I remember when I was in church, they would say, God will never leave us nor forsake us. And you just said this morning that the ancestors has always been like that with us. They would never leave us and never forsake us. We were not aware that they were with us until the family started talking about it. So my question to you is, when we pray, meditate, seeking answers, I know we are first to acknowledge the ancestors, but are they the ones who we need to turn to when we have in situations, when we need clarity or guidance? That's my question for this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. When we prayed, we were sustained by mercy. When our elders petitioned the Creator um, when we were going through things, when we were faced when we were facing adversity, the mercy of our Creator allowed us to be delivered. It's one thing that I always remember about our elders. They will always say, I don't know what God they serve, meaning the European Christians. I don't know what God they serve, but the God that I serve would not do blah, 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 whatever they were doing to us. So the idea of the ideal of God to us has always been that it is different than the one that we were given, even though we didn't recognize that we were approaching spirituality differently than they were. We were indeed delineating or making it expressing that we realized that the one that the European Christians were talking about was not the God who we were accessing and who sustained us in the answering and deliverance of our people. Also, when it comes to that, most of the time when we were taught to ask for things, pray rather, it was always asking for something. Our elders were asking, their asking was a blanket asking, meaning that it covered everybody and everything. Our children's education, or deliver our children from what we had to endure when we grew up, those kinds of things. Now, the other part of that is this. When we were taught to pray, it was the multiplying of words, but it was also meditation. And the meditation that we entered into was when we were in silent prayer. I also remember hearing the elders talk about they were always in prayer. That when Paul talked about prayer without ceasing, that wasn't a thing that they embraced. That they were always in prayer. Yet what they did at night or in the morning, when they were on their knees, or when they were sitting in their rocking chair, they were acknowledging the presence of the Creator who watched over us. And the ancestors were, of course, present. However, we had been taught that they are not, the ancestors are evil, not evil, I'm sorry, that to approach them is evilness on our part, and that is demonic on our part. Yet they talked about, they meaning the elders as well as us, we talked about how we have visitations from those who have transitioned, and the energy of your mom, your sister, your brother, whomever, your cousin, it doesn't matter. The reason that you have those expressions or those feelings, those experiences with those who transition is because it's familiar energy. The energy of my mom or my grandmama or my dad, whomever, the energy from them would get my attention, even though it is not just an individual ancestor who is responding to us. It is the energy that you're familiar with that gets your attention. And once you are comfortable with that, it gets to the place where it doesn't matter what energy it is, you receive it. You have that experience. And let me throw this in while I'm speaking. Make every effort not to seek to hear with your ears, hear with your experiences, and you won't necessarily feel it when you are experiencing it, but you will recognize it when you are speaking or when you are responding to something or someone. Does that help you, Evan? And of course, everyone else, if there are questions, please raise them.
It does. And the reason why I say it, the European gave us the God, that their God, is because at church we had this white Jesus with the blue eyes and the long hair. And that's who I would imagine in my heart when I cried out. I was looking at this white God that was on the walls of the church.
Yes.
So that's why I made that statement, what I said. Thank you. But I hear what you're saying, and it resonates. Thank you.
Thank you. And that white Jesus was subliminal. Everything that was considered to be divine was white, was European. And that was a subliminal message that I am your God, meaning Europeans are our God. However, we looked beyond that, and our desires went beyond that, because the denunciation of that came when we say, I don't know what God you serve. But the one that I serve wouldn't lynch. The one that I serve is not a racist. The one that I serve, and on down the line of those things that we talked about then. We were also told that it doesn't matter what color God is. And I remember getting in trouble, and had come out of the Sunday school classes, and we were given a synopsis of the lessons. And one of my questions was, if it doesn't matter what color Jesus is, why does he have to be white? And of course, I got admonished for that. And the rest of the people wouldn't even address the question. But all I got was, it doesn't matter what color he is. Some questions don't need to be asked, that kind of thing. I hope I'm addressing what you spoke to, Evelyn.
You are, and all of us, people my age or older, born in the 60s or before, we couldn't question our parents. But you were different. You were hard-headed probably, and you just wanted to know what you wanted to know. But anyway, we'd have got in trouble. We'd have got slapped. So, yeah, that's why we couldn't question our parents. But that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Now, I will say this. We were encouraged to question, except when they were telling us to do something or the grown folk talk. No, you leave that alone. However, when it comes to things that we didn't understand or what we wanted to know, we were always encouraged to question, but not question them. Does that make sense, Evelyn?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question. I know GC was ahead of me. GC, did you want to go first? You were ahead of me.
No, Ron, I yield.
I want to go back to Kathy's question in Hebrews 12:1. Kathy's verse rather. Uh, Therefore, since we have so great a cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us also lay aside every encumbrance and the sin which so easily entangled us. And this is for primarily the people on this phone. What are the things that entangle us now? Are we still being, what entangles us? And if that's too personal, I understand. But where are we? Is that a fair question?
Yeah, I think it is. I think our entanglement has more to do with our struggle to embrace the reality of who we are.
I guess the journey that we've taken together, as Levon said, this is a beautiful community. Where are we? What's the entanglements now that snare us?
Like I said, I look at two, Ron.
Okay.
One is struggling to be who we are. The other one is living life.
Yeah. Yeah. Anybody else see anything
Ron,
different?
this is Evelyn. I'll say I am the reason why I have the entanglements, because I get in my way sometimes. So I'm saying me. The moment I get out of my way, then things start to move the way it's supposed to. It'll flow. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay.
Ron, I will say we possess double standards, and that forces a lot of entanglements in how we maneuver. And people that I know who are in leadership, whether they male or female, I ask them, how do you lead a diverse group of people? And one of the things that someone said that stood out to me, you got to keep the standard. You can't show favor with one and alienate the other. So double standards will cause a lot of entanglements. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, George. I guess
That reminds
I'm sorry.
me about being double-minded. And being double-minded, for me, is a spiritual thing. And if it's based on spiritual principles, and that's what you commit to, that's what you base your life on, that's what you base your actions and your thoughts on, it's a bit more difficult to get away from those spiritual foundations. But when you allow external kinds of things, physical kinds of things, emotions, whatever, to get into your thoughts and to capture you through your thoughts, that's where the double-mindedness comes in. And you find yourself trying to live a life according to a principle of a materialistic physical principle based on what other people externally show you or say to you or say how you ought to be, rather than living a life according to a basic foundation of spiritual principles: loving kindness, justice, mercy, peace, order, and then whatever you do it in the context of those basic foundational spiritual principles, and you'll find that you're less likely to be double-minded. And it's something you got to practice. I'm not saying it comes easy all the time, and I'm not saying that I'm one of those people who don't get out of line sometimes. But as soon as I know and become aware that I have done so, I try to get back in alignment with those principles, because we all have times when we miss the mark, if you will.
Yeah.
When we miss the mark. Well, when we miss the mark, hit the target again and try to hit it the next time. So double-mindedness is one of the physical kinds of things I think of when we are not rooted and grounded in spiritual principles. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank
Ron, I agree with everything that's been said.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
I go back to what Pastor said about living life, and I go back to what Evelyn said about getting out of your own way. And this is what shocked me about the example that I gave earlier, when I said I didn't even realize I was trying to shape something that needed to play out the way it was supposed to, based on everything that I've known about who we are spiritually and what we have the authority to do. I thought trying to tell the weather to be what I wanted it to be was the right thing to do, because that's what I've done in the past, so that no one would be harmed and all of these things. But even in trying to do the right thing, I had to embrace what the ancestors told me from the inside out. Let it be what it's going to be, because you have to realize things are bigger than we are now. It's not just about me and my time and what I want. And that goes back to get it out of my own way, because sometimes in living life, we become impatient with what we think should be happening right now when it should be happening. And that was a powerful lesson to me that, okay, so you have always stood in the gap for trying to save people from severe weather or whatever it is that may be coming this way, but step back from this and look at the bigger picture. It's bigger than you. It's bigger than an outdoor festival that you all are putting on. It's so much bigger than that. It is let the energy of the ancestors guide and direct and let this thing play out the way it is supposed to. And I think even something that appeared to have been a right thing was becoming an entanglement for me because I was pushing, wanting it to be my way, what I wanted it to be. And even though I was hearing let it be what it's supposed to be, I'm thinking, but it's not supposed to be this. And so even in just that example in and of itself, that's an example of I had to get out of my own way, step back and say, you know what, I embrace what I'm hearing. Let this be what it's supposed to be. And that was the right thing to do. And so I think I'm saying all of that to say sometimes we get entangled in things that is not necessarily what we call quote unquote sin or unrightness. We even think we are doing the right thing, but our timing, I'm learning, it's all about the timing of the universe and not the timing of Kathy. And that was a powerful lesson that I had to learn. So that could have become an entanglement, would be pushing, and then if it didn't work out the way I wanted it to, then being upset, like, why is this not happening for me? I could have gone there. But like I said, I had to step back and say, you know what? You know what you're hearing. You're hearing this on the inside of you every time you sit and meditate, but you're still pushing. Why are you doing that? Let it be what it's going to be. Step back from it and just continue to breathe and embrace the reality of what is. And I think I wanted to give that example because a thing can become an entanglement even when you think you're doing the right thing sometimes. And I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Thank you. Good explanation. Thank you. Audrey, were you going to speak earlier?
Well, I was, and I'm just listening to everybody talk. But what I was thinking when George said double standards. Well, the thing is, we've lived with double standards all our lives, all our existence in America. So if that is the definition of entanglement, and I'm asking, is it? Then we've been entangled for all our lives.
Yes.
So for me, getting beyond that kind, and I mean, even religion can be entanglement because certain religions teach certain things about what you can and can't do and how you should think or not think. I mean, all of that is entanglements. So for me, I'm just really glad that we have gotten to a point where we could get back to beginning, to realize exactly what is what, and to get a clearer picture of how we became entangled and all of that stuff. So that, and I guess the only way we understand it is for it to just resonate deeply within us. That's the only way we can understand what is right for us. Because not everything works for everybody. But the other thing I wanted to say is, in terms of ancestors, we always say, well, the Bible tells us to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord, right?
Yeah.
And even science now is saying that energy cannot be destroyed.
Yeah.
So if we are energy, we are spirit, when we're absent from the body, we are present with the Creator. Our energy can't be destroyed. So why can't we look at that as our ancestors? And they are, because they were personal to us. They were family to us. They were community to us. So I don't quite understand why that concept is hard to accept. To me, it kind of makes the foundation of my belief more tangible. Because when I think of ancestors, I mean, it's people I know, people who have gone on before me, who only want the best for me. So for me, that's a much more tangible thing to sort of grab hold to,
Yeah.
and know that those who have gone on before me or are going to guide me, because they're there. They weren't destroyed, they exist.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
Well, in that regard too, I agree with that. I think I overanalyze things, and when I look at it the way you just described it, what I recognize is that the presence has been there all along, even in my childhood, and I didn't recognize it. I didn't see it as ancestors or know what it was, but there's nothing magical about it. It's pretty easy to accept and to see when I recognize it from that perspective. It is me and I am it. So I see myself. Uh, this verse got my attention though. It says, you can lay aside every weight, everything that weighs you down so it doesn't entangle you. And if you look at the journey that we've taken, the things that were weighing us down no longer weigh us down. There are things that we still face and will face because they are necessary, but it's not the same things. So the weights represent the journey that we've taken, or the way we saw religion. As Pastor said when he first looked at this verse, looking at it through the eyes of religion, the way we saw religion, the way we saw slavery. Slavery was a big weight for us, but we've moved past that. It doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It's just that we are different now. And that is not a weight that weighs us down. So we're not going getting entangled in somebody telling us, or you are not this, or you are not that, or you're not good enough. I think this verse kind of measures where we are in the journey that we've taken and shows us what we're about now. So it doesn't mean that we can't get entangled. It doesn't mean that we don't see weights. It just says that your journey has been very rewarding and valuable, not only to you, but to mankind. And if you look behind you, you could see the things that the shackles that you have taken off. You see the conversations that you've had about the scriptures. That how many times do we revisit a creation story and look at that and how we see it now, and looking at the scripture now to say that Jesus represents an energy. It represents an energy in mankind. Job represents an energy in a journey of mankind. Abraham represents a journey of who you are. So it is not looking at this thing, this blanket thing, and being captured by the Bible. You can't say this about the Bible or that about the Bible. You are what's holy. You are what's satisfied when you discern what is right or wrong, or what is truthful, or what is needed and what is valuable in the earth. And you're no longer seeing this thing is no longer, as we have been taught about, Ron has to get himself ready for salvation. So and so, Pastor Audrey, everybody has to get. It is for mankind. So it just kind of looked at that. I just looked at that and thought the things that weighed us down last year are no longer weighing us down this year. And it just kind of marks the journey if you kind of look back at it a little bit, which I think is a good thing.
I I agree with what's been said wholeheartedly. If I may make an addition to that,
Of course.
as we travel this journey, it's not so much that we don't get entangled, is that we recognize it more readily now.
Yeah.
And we deal with it in a totally different way than we did in the past. In the past, the reason we didn't recognize entanglements is because we were seeing it through the eyes of religion and we saw it as the devil.
Mm-hmm.
We were taught that there was another entity that was wreaking havoc in our lives. And now that we're on the journey, we understand that we invite some entanglements, and the entanglements that we don't invite are necessary to strengthen us. When we look at our lives retrospectively, we begin to see a roadmap that led us to where we are, and is replete with entanglements that forced us to push through, that forced us to be still. Entanglements. So entanglements are not adversarial unless you don't recognize them or you refuse to embrace them. Then they become adversarial.
Yes.
Um,
Good point.
we mentioned ancestors. We talk about people who transition. God wanted another angel, a messenger, because that angelic being is simply a message. So what are we saying? When we're saying that it is a message, then who brings the message? Ancestors. Does that make sense?
It does.
And when we look at this idea of duplicity and leadership, the effective leader knows his people, his personalities. Effective leader deal with people where they are with an understanding that everyone is not in the same place, yet you're willing and you're sensitive enough to go to that place wherever they are and help them get through it. You don't climb the rungs on the ladder alone. When you travel climb the rungs on a ladder, you bring people with you. And if you see that someone is not coming with you, then you return to that space and get them and bring them. That's the principle of leaving the 99 to recover the one. That's the same principle. Also, you can't have third-party leadership and be a leader. Third party, what I call third-party leadership, is when you got to always check with someone to see if they agree with what you're about to do. That's third-party leadership. Leadership knows that it's going to do the best that it can, yet it also realizes that it makes mistakes and embrace those mistakes. If you cannot admit that you're wrong when you're wrong, then you're not an effective leader, and I doubt whether you're a leader at all. Because everybody at the front of the line is not a leader, and everybody who talks loud is not a leader. Everyone who feel like they are the star, they are not a leader. leaders become one with the people that it leads. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Questions about that? So we are at a space now, in a space now where you can't lead without knowing and embracing the ancestors. You don't know what you're doing, you don't know where you're going. You don't know enough about who you are to make these snap decisions without embracing the ancestors. Look at how we were when we were looking at it through the eyes of religion. We were Christians, but didn't know what that meant. When you ask someone, what is a Christian? One who followed Jesus. Well, what does that mean? Follow Jesus where? In what? And there were no explanations most of the time, or scripture was quoted without an understanding. Now it's different. It's different in that when someone asks you who you are, you know that you're a spiritual being whose origin is a Kabbalah. You know that. You know that you are Elohim. Now, do you have to tell them that? No. There are other ways to speak to people other than trying to give them a sense that you're superior in terms of knowing who you are, or you lose them because of the way you say that. A lion, as one of the senators said, a lion does not have to tell anyone is a lion. Everyone in the jungle knows a lion. And so what am I saying? When you are in leadership, or when you know who you are spiritually, you don't have to tell anyone. They recognize that. And in some of us, people have always recognized that, but guess who didn't? We didn't. When people walk up to us in the store, or walk up to us in a mall someplace and just pour their hearts out in a restaurant, we didn't realize that we are Elohim, and the essence of Elohim is what attracted them. They see Elohim with their soul, and that's what's attracted them. They see that you know who you are, but they can't explain it that way. Because if you don't know who you are, you cannot bring relief to them. You can't bring comfort to them. And when they approach you and you speak with them or just listen to them, the comfort that you bring to them is based upon what they see. So you don't have to say to them, "Oh, I'm God." You don't have to do that. Just be who you are. Does that make sense?
It does.
It resonates.
And that's another thing. Resonates. This is what I was showing about things that resonate. Every time something resonates with you, another layer has been pulled back. Something else about you that was covered is now uncovered. And when it resonates, it's uncovered, yet you may not be able to articulate it, but you know it's there. And you don't have to remember it because it's there. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yes, I believe that.
Thank you. We are in a very precarious place. Let me ask this question first. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I got one, Reverend Richard, but it's more of a statement and question, but you can go ahead, sir.
No, you go ahead with your interrogative statement.
One of the things that I do, Reverend Richard, that really aids me in having a relationship with my ancestors and having some degree of how to work through entanglements I take advantage of the living. And what I mean by take advantage of the living is if Miss Kathy was lecturing and she was talking about how the moon is feminine energy and the sun is celestial to her, to the moon and the stars, I'm going to take advantage of her in the living, and I would ask her, hey, Miss Kathy, if the moon is feminine energy and it experiences somewhat of what the sun is going through, the stars, the clouds, if a male is struggling with his wife and her platonic relationship, how does it affect the mother? Is the mother insecure? I'm going to take advantage of her because I know she can answer the question. And in asking that question, it benefits people who cannot answer the question. So I'm going to take advantage of the living. Reverend Richard, you said something. I was in the parking lot about to go get my back cracked. And you said something about you questioned the intelligence of African American males who voted for Trump. I wanted to ask you, hey, Reb, how you feel about brothers who voted for Biden knowing that he's always supported mass incarceration? He's pandered toward the African American. I'm asking you that question, Reverend Richard, because I know you can answer it. Now, if I was to ask someone else that question, and I have, I'm trying to trip you up. Yet, other people get to hear your response. So when people out here having these conversations, at least you get to hear a rebuttal of what to say if you so choose to be the arbitrator. So I take advantage of the living. Ask you questions or ask people questions I already know the answer to, but I ain't too sure if other people know the answer. So I have a good, somewhat relationship with my ancestors, and I try and Reb, I'll say this in conclusion. I try and tell my wife, you better take advantage of me while I'm living. If I give my nephew a chore, don't nobody need to come over there and pick him up to get fries and ice cream. I'm giving him that chore to see how well he buys into this by way of attitude, and how long does it take him to buy into this without me telling. Because you do have some supervisors out here, they will ask you to do something that you don't even meet the qualifications on, yet your attitude makes you teachable. Might want to take advantage of me while I'm living, because when I'm dead and gone, all this go with me. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. The advantage might be when you're gone too. Depends on how you live. So, and how you interact. Anyway, I thank you for that, George. Anyone else before I say some things?
Yeah, I have a question. What is the relationship between rightness and ripeness? That's RIGHT-NESS and RIPE-NESS.
I honestly don't think there is a difference between the two. Now, if someone else sees the difference between the two, I'm ready to hear it, because I'm always anxious to learn. But I don't readily see a difference between the two.
Well, I would only say that sometimes the right thing doesn't go over until the time is ripe.
Okay.
But they're pretty much the same thing.
I like that. Barbara Jean?
I don't have a response. It just clicked as a question as
Okay.
Kathy was talking earlier.
Oh, okay.
Rightness and rightness. Thank you.
Can I ask something here?
Yes.
Yesterday, the lady gave an example of the Muslim preacher who brought up ancestors to a
Mhm.
congregation that did not respond. Would that be he was ripe in maybe his knowledge about ancestors, but rightness, it wasn't the time for everyone because he didn't explain it? Would that be an example of the slight difference between the two?
I don't think so because he had no knowledge of the ancestors. He had had heard about it. When you have a knowledge of anything, whether it be ancestors or any other any other thing you're talking about, when you know it's foreign to people, you explain it. So the only way that I would know that he had knowledge of the ancestors in that regard is that he explained it and he didn't. To me, that was an example of someone who heard about something and is going to repeat it to make himself look good or to place him in a status beyond the people to whom he's speaking. Now, if anyone sees that differently, please say so.
I can see that. Thank you.
Mhm. See, everyone who stands before people is not knowledgeable. Everyone who stands before people is not leadership. Everyone who stands before people does not necessarily have anything to offer in terms of being beneficial to humanity. Does that make sense?
Yes, very
Oh,
much.
yes, it does. Very much.
Yes, it does. I remember one time when we were at Beulah, like, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, when they were interviewing this pastor and he was doing a trial sermon. And he said something about the feminine side of God. And that just perked my ears up. But then later on, when I really asked him about it, he had no answers for me. So yeah, there's an example of he said something that he had heard, but really knew nothing about.
Yes. What we have called
Well, yeah, and that just reduced his credibility in my eyes because he didn't know what he was talking about.
we have embraced too many people as leaders or as knowledgeable who has no clue about anything other than what they heard somebody else say. My words to the people I covered when when I started this journey was what I have been teaching you is what I heard, is what I've been taught. But I promise you from this day forward, I will teach you what's in the Bible. I will teach you the truth. All I ask is you follow me as I follow God. Now, what was I saying? All of the stuff that I talked about, I did my best to explain it. However, it didn't make sense to me when the deeper I dived into it. And I am one of those people who believe that you should keep your mouth closed and not bring up something if you don't know enough about it. Why? Because I encourage anyone, and I'll tell anyone, I've told my kids this all their life, if you can't ask questions, the person who's supposed to be teaching you does not deserve the right to be a teacher. If you can't ask questions. So anyway, are there any questions about that?
Not about that, Pastor, but I think GC had something he wanted to say earlier.
Okay, George, sorry about that.
No, my apologies. I'll yield. I'll yield.
No, go ahead.
Oh, wow. No, and again, I don't want to go off track, but I think that when Kathy, was speaking about the dust clouds, um, I wanted to just mention in terms of just looking at the synergy of the force of nature, not only in terms of the dust cloud, but looking at the importance of not just the earth consciousness, but also, looking at the air, looking at the water, looking at fire, and looking at the ether. And I think that the ancestors are moving in those realms of nature in a way that I think that we should give thought to and seeking spiritual enlightenment from in addition. That was on my mind at that time. I'm done.
And thank you. That's not off course.
Not at all.
That's in keeping about the theme of the whole discussion. Anyone else?
I have a question, Pastor. And I
Yes.
knew it might take you off course. My question is, when God told, the truth told Adam and Eve, you have become just like us, knowing good and evil. So, in that span, when they got put out, before they got put out of the place they was in, and he told them, you're gonna have to till the ground, and the woman will have bear pains more, when you have birth. So that tilling the ground made them struggle to get to know who God was, because they couldn't just receive it like they did before. And so I feel like you're working your way back to understand and get the knowledge of him, because at that time they had I don't know what I can say, had corrupt themselves. They keep from seeking the things of God, of knowing the things of God, or the truth, because of what they did. That's all I can say it right now.
Okay, that's fine, Charles. I got you. This whole story about Adam and Eve, Adam and Eve, has been misinterpreted. There is no way that you can be in the image and likeness of God and Elohim and not know good from evil, or rightness from unrightness, or right from wrong. Why? Because if you didn't have anything to compare it to, then what would be wrong and what would be right is null and void. So what am I saying to you? I'm saying that this story about Adam and Eve is a story telling us that we occupied a space that privileged us with understandings, the ideals or the principles of spirituality. And in order for us to be the true image of Elohim, we had to be schooled in the ways of rightness and unrightness. Why? Because if we are to be Elohim, we are the agents of deliverance. and being agents of deliverance, we have to understand what we are delivering people from. And the things that we are delivering people from are those things that are adversarial to life itself. And what I mean by life, I'm talking about to life in the spiritual sense, to life in understanding the essence of who you are. So when it talks about them being put out of the garden, it's talking about them being put in a space of unicity with each other. And if you follow that through, what you will see is in that third chapter, skin is put over, they are clothed in skin. So what am I saying? There is a precursor to being clothed in skin. You have to understand the spiritual nature of your being, and you have to understand what you're getting into, meaning that you are going to become just like Elohim when you are covered in skin. When you are a human, you're going to be Elohim, have this spiritual experience, and in doing that, having this spiritual experience, you are also going to encounter people who are around you who you have to recognize as being purveyors of right or purveyors of unrightness. And so that's what brings us to the place where we create in our image and likeness, which is loving kindness, mercy, etc. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. It makes sense.
Thank you. Thank you, Charles. I'm sorry about that.
You're welcome. I just got a little more understanding of it.
Okay. That experience in the garden experience, that experience, what we call alchemy, that is far different than anything that we have been told, or far different than things that I've taught, to be honest with you. And I say me, because I admit that I taught things that I grew to find out were not congruent with what the scriptures were actually saying.
Part of the journey.
Huh?
Part of the journey.
Yeah.
Great discussion, everybody. Great energy tonight. Today. Anyone else? Any questions? Okay. Well, let us resume tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. Hope you have a great day.
Ron, I thought Pastor was going to say something.
Okay.
After the
Okay.
question.
I'm sorry.
I was going to reserve it since then, but what I
Okay.
want to say is that we're in a precarious position, and we are seeing things with our eyes that we are not interpreting with our eye. What are we seeing? We saw a comparison yesterday. We saw a parade for a would-be dictator, and we saw people in the street saying, "Not a king." What did all that mean? If you look at how that took place, what you see is there were very few people who were interested in being around this parade thingy. But there were thousands of people in the streets. There were thousands of people in the streets in Greenville in this Not a King thing. So what we are seeing are people of European descent beginning to take to the streets in large numbers. And as they are taken to the streets in large numbers, we see less and less of a police presence. You look at Los Angeles, where there are Hispanics in the streets, you see tear gas. You look around the country where there are Caucasians in the street, you see nothing at all except them. So This wannabe dictator at some point is going to clash with those who say not a king. The spiritual understanding of that is this: those who have fought like hell to prop up a system of oppression are clashing with each other. This is not about a democracy, and I put that in air quotes. This is about the foundation that has supported systemic racism beginning to crumble. And its crumbling is based upon them fighting each other. This is a battle between Europeans. And this battle between those of European descent is not a battle that we have a part in. That is not our battle. Our battle is over. We just don't know it. Our battle has been to maintain the understanding of who we are, regardless of what we see with our eyes. It's over. So now the fallout from this puny wannabe dictator and the people who have been propping this up is beginning to falter, which means that coming into existence is the harmony, the peace that we have desired for years. So keep your eye open, but also keep your eyes open, because your eyes can see the manifestation of this battle between those of European descent. And if you look at what's actually happening, the countries that Donald Trump has said cannot or have restricted interest into this country, there are 36 more being added, and all of them are countries of people of color. So keep them out of this country, because we are afraid of their ingenuity. We're afraid of the power that they have. They don't need to be here. We are here. And our presence here is the presence of those who have been battle tested and ready to focus on the spiritual as opposed to the political. So stay where you are, trust who you are, and recognize that your desire to see harmony is a desire to bring an awareness of peace and awareness of love and kindness to this nation, or to this country rather, where we will raise up a nation. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It does.
This is important to understand. And there's a lot more that about the spiritual essence of what happened yesterday. A lot more. And we will get into that later. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And I'm done. So tomorrow evening, I'm sorry, at 6 o'clock, we will reconvene.
Yes, sir.
All right, take care, family.
Take
Take care, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye,